That's what John was just saying. Good evening. Call to order the City of Mason Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, April 14th, 2015. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Barna. Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Hagel.
Here.
Commissioner Hude.
Here.
I always do that. Chair Reeser.
Here.
Vice Chair Sabadin.
Here.
Commissioner Scott.
Here.
And Commissioner Waxman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And for the record, Commissioner Barna did give notice that she wasn't going to be here this evening. Good evening, Commissioners. Got before you the minutes from our last meeting. Any comments, questions, concerns, changes that we need to make on the minutes from this last meeting?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the meeting minutes from March 10th, 2015.
Second.
It's been moved to second and seconded to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. All right. At this point in our meeting is an opportunity for people from the general public to address the Planning Commission on any topic related to the Planning Commission, except for tonight being that we do have a public hearing. So does anybody that wanted to talk about planning issues or questions, they come to the podium now. Yes, sir.
It has to do with a public hearing, but the question is, I just want to make sure, one of the notices I got said the meeting was 5:30 instead of 6:30. And so I want to make sure that isn't something legally that's going to screw this up for the rezoning request. Because I don't want this project to go ahead. So, that's just a question for you.
Okay. David, as far as we have two, Mr. Ross, you said you had two letters that came out, one
6:30, 5:30.
We'll go with the 6:30 one.
What was the first section?
So-
Special use.
Yeah, if you would address that, David, if there's anything we need to worry about now.
That's true. There was a typographical error on the notice, I think, for the rezoning that said 5:30. My understanding is that you were here at 5:30, and no one else had showed up during that time. So we could, I guess, be safe to say that those who were interested showed up at 5:30, and those all present stayed for the meeting tonight. So I would suggest that we're safe to proceed.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Austin. We appreciate you bringing that to our attention, and we appreciate that you were here at 5:30, and you were the gatekeeper for us. And if nobody else came and pounded on it, saying they were here with you at 5:30, then obviously the only one that was here. So we'll let it stand with that. Thank you. All right, having no one else from the public to address us, commissioners, announcements. Any announcements we need to be aware of? Yes, Mr. Scott.
I neglected at the last meeting to mention that Commissioner Hagel and I, at the end of February, had the opportunity to attend a Planning and Zoning Essentials workshop that was presented by the Michigan Association of Planning in Ann Arbor. It was about a 4-hour session, I think. We had a lot of good information take home with us, and some good reference material they provided. Money well spent.
Beautiful. Thank you. Mr. Hagel, any comments that you want to make on that? Is it good?
It was very good. I
Good.
enjoyed it. Actually went faster than I thought it would. Very informative.
Awesome, thanks. Commissioners, any other announcements? All right, moving right along is item number 6 on our agenda is the public hearing. Tonight, the first public hearing is item A, is a rezoning for 368 South Park Street, commonly known as Resolutions 2015-01, a resolution recommending that the City Council adopt ordinance number 199. It's what you have on that, and then we'll open it up for the property owners' representation, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Okay. So this is as you mentioned, rezoning request for the westerly 1.09 acres of land on the Dart Bank property. This is a former area that was occupied by Inco Graphics building, recently purchased by Dart Bank and proposed for redevelopment. However, in this particular circumstance, we have to task ourselves with the appropriateness of the district being requested, that being office, general office. Essentially, the requested zoning district is C1, Central Business District. The current zoning is O1, office. And generally, the districts are very similar. However, the C1 Central Business District allows a much broader range of land uses, obviously outside of a office restriction to a more general commercial list of uses, that being everywhere from retail to personal services, including office and such. Everything from residential uses on the second floor and up, and retail trade, etc. Including permitted special uses are very similar, those being drive-through facilities, which is they're being requested in the second request tonight for a special use permit for the bank facilities. Restaurants and the like, so much like what you would see in a traditional downtown environment is what the C1 zoning classification would permit. With any rezoning, we turn to the master plan for guidance on the permitted zoning districts in the area. The downtown area is suggested to have a C1 zoning classification. This area is within the Downtown Development Authority district, so a commercial central business district would certainly coincide and support the Downtown Development Authority district as well. With regard to the master plan, there are two land use designations within the vicinity of the site, that being commercial to the north, east, and south, and residential to the west. However, the area to the west is really buffered by a railroad and a park, city park, so all intents and purposes, the west edge will virtually remain the same indefinitely. So all of the future land use designations in the area are compatible with the request. The commercial development goal in the master plan lists a number of objectives. I've focused on two of them here, objective number 4 and 13. And the request appears to be compatible with that in the sense that it encourages a commercial development in the downtown area that's retail, office, and entertainment in character, that draws people and improves the economic vitality. Objective number 13, provide opportunities for limited and incremental expansion of the downtown business area to provide increased opportunities for new businesses while maintaining its integrity and encouraging the enhancement of nearby residential neighborhoods. Certainly, downtown uses are compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, especially in this particular circumstance where it's buffered by the railroad, a park, a creek, etc. So there's certainly a considerable distance in between. And these are the basically the guidance from Section 94-396A, which all rezoning requests have to match. So that was the first criteria. The second criteria is what, if any, identifiable conditions related to the proposal have changed, which justify the proposed amendment. From my analysis, there don't appear to be any changes in the vicinity. Number 3, what, if any, error in judgment, procedure, administration was made. There don't appear to be any errors of this sort. Number 4, what are the precedents and the possible effects of such precedent which might result from the approval or denial of the petition or the rezoning request? From my analysis, there doesn't appear to be a risk or precedent of this sort. As I mentioned earlier, the request is consistent with the master plan objectives for commercial development. Number 5, what's the impact of the amendment on the ability of the city and other governmental agencies to provide adequate public services and facilities? There appears to be no impact of this type. The site's currently served with the necessary public utilities. Number 6, the proposed amendment. Does the proposed amendment adversely affect the value of the surrounding property? Whether this affects the value of the surrounding property is really up to the discretion of the Planning Commission. I would suggest that it probably enhances the value of the surrounding property. Number 7, are there any significant environmental impacts which would reasonably occur if the petitioned zoning change and resulting allowed structures were built? There are no known environmental impacts associated with the proposed rezoning request. With the proposed development review, we'll see in the later proceedings of tonight's meeting, you'll see that they are actually proposing to clean up the site, obviously, and make substantial improvements to the property, not only from an aesthetic and a functional perspective, but also from an environmental perspective. Number 8, the ability of the property in question to be put to reasonable economic use. The proposed zoning district is consistent with the master plan and provides a range of reasonable economic possibilities. So that's a general overview of the considerations that need to be made when considering rezoning request. Now I'll move on to how other aspects of the project affect city standards. With respect to public services and facilities, the streets in the area, they're not proposing to make any changes to the streets. Most, if not all, of the similar driveway access points are there. Some are being slightly relocated, but for the most part, the site will function fairly similarly as it had in the past, with the exception of the north driveway. I think is north and south driveways are moving farther to the west, but otherwise they're fairly similar. Although that doesn't necessarily affect the rezoning request. That's for a future consideration tonight. With respect to public water and sanitary sewer, they're all serve the site adequately. Additional agency comments. The Ingham County Health Department provided a comment indicating that the solid waste generated from demolition should be sent or must be sent to an approved solid waste disposal facility. I think this is a fairly standard process for reconstruction. The Lansing, or the Jackson and Lansing Railroad Company provided comment on the plan indicating that any and all stormwater runoff be controlled so as not to discharge onto the railroad right-of-way. Really, this issue is best dealt with during the site plan review process as a consideration for rezoning. I'm not sure that that should be a limiting factor in the appropriateness of the proposed district. That's more of a specific developmental proposal. I think what happened is the Jackson Lansing Railroad read the notice for special use permit but responded to the rezoning request. So those comments really should have been involved, but since it was on their letterhead, I felt obligated to include it in this staff report. With that, staff would suggest that the request to rezone the property is generally consistent with the master plan, as it's consistent with objective number 4 and 13 of the commercial development goal of Chapter 2. It's also consistent with the downtown center area description of the commercial areas component of the future land use strategy in Chapter 3. So with that, you have a recommendation to approve resolution number 2015-01. And with that, I'll take any comments or questions.
Well, on that part, we're just going over the overview right now, so
Yep.
for the public
Yep.
hearing. At this point, if the property owners' representatives want to address the PC as well as the public, that everything that David just went over is pretty much what you're planning, then I'll open up the public hearing for any comments. If you wouldn't mind, please just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Don Bird. I am the planning management. I'm actually located at 473 Copper Drive here in Lacey. I am the construction manager for Guard Bank and the redevelopment project for here in Warren. I also brought with me Tammy Foster. She is our civil engineer. So she is very much dealing with most of the issues that you guys are going to have questions about today. David did go over the project quite clearly. We are planning on doing a new bank headquarters there for Guard Bank, which will encompass pretty much the entire block. From the railroad to the overall project will actually have a much lesser impact on the site than what the previous development had on it. And we'll have more green space overall and more clearable space than what was previously on site. We've seen the old buildings and the parking lot that was there and what is currently there. With that, I'll let you move towards the actual request.
My name is Tammy Foster. I'm with Nick Foster Engineering. We are located at 12350 Elmwood Road in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I'm the civil engineer for the project. Our rezoning request basically helps to consolidate all the zoning within the block that Heartland Core District into one zoning district. Right now there were several filing blocks that are of this zoning office. And by consolidating with one zoning district, we can not have separate requirements that join different pieces of development. So we would have to have different things for buffer requirements in the office versus the zoning district. And just for the cohesiveness of site development and the site itself, we thought that the best thing to do is to consolidate.
Great, thank you. All right, at this point in our meeting, I appreciate the comments to kind of give an overview from both the developer side as well as from what was presented from the city. At this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing. The way that our public hearings work is that everyone that wants to address the Planning Commission would come up one at a time, state their name and address for the record, and you've got 3 minutes or up to 3 minutes to go ahead and tell us what your feelings are. Correct. Oh, I'm sorry. The comments I was just getting is that this is the public hearing for this part is just the rezoning, not for the special use permit. So we've got 2 public hearings that will be going on tonight. So Right now, I'm going to open up the public hearing for just the rezoning. So, public hearing is open.
Norman Austin, 331 West Ash Street. Very, very concerned about this because it's very close to where I live, and so I want to see what's going on. I'm very supportive of Dart Bank and their efforts to build over here and take care of it. And I would certainly hope that the planning commission will go ahead and approve the request for rezone. I support that 100%.
Thank you, sir. All right. Having nobody else that's heading up to the podium, our public hearing is closed. Now, for the next part of our public hearing agenda, item B pertains to the same parcel of property. This special hearing is a special use permit. Am I correct? Oh, I'm sorry. I was going off from just that it had public hearing under both items on our agenda.
The resolution.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah,
I'm
for
sorry.
tonight's meeting, we're
Oh,
handling
I-
the resolution as part of the
Correct.
public hearing, not necessarily in the public hearing, but
Right.
under the same agenda item.
Mr.
My
Chairman,
mistake, I'm sorry. Yes, Commissioner Waxman.
I move that we consider Planning Commission Resolution Number 2015-01 as being read.
It's been moved and seconded to consider resolution number 2015-01 as being read. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. That motion carries. Do we have a resolution to introduce?
Yes, we do. We have Planning Commission Resolution Number 2015-01, a resolution recommending that the City Council adopt ordinance Number 199, Dart Bank rezoning, introduced by Sabatin, seconded by Hude.
All right, Commissioners. Mr. Haywood has gone over everything that is pertaining to this resolution. Are there any questions that you have, Mr. Haywood, or for the developers that are here as well?
I guess I have a question.
Yes,
Do
Commissioner
you
Hagan.
know if it's their intent to have tenants?
I don't believe so, but that's probably a question for them.
Any other questions, Commissioners?
Yeah,
Yes.
just, I know this is slightly out of place, but I just want to make sure that we do address the railroad's drainage concerns, perhaps in the next resolution. Okay.
I just have one comment, and this is really has to do with Mr. Haywood and on the zoning map that's on the website. And this might be just a small technical issue, but there is the alley behind the post office, obviously, on the east side of Park Street. On the zoning map, that alley actually extends all the way. Is that just a error on the map?
Yeah, it's probably a leftover alley. Yeah, it's not, the alley is not there. No. Yeah.
I think one of them even showed an abandoned alley, or that something had happened long before our time here.
Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions on the rezoning? All in favor of the resolution 2015-01, a resolution recommending that the City Council adopt ordinance number 199, All in favor say yes. Yes. All opposed, no. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, now we'll get back to the public hearing part of it. Our public hearing on this part is, again, on 368 South Park Street, the Dart Bank. The special use permit is what we'll be discussing now. Mr. Haywood, is there anything else that you would like to give an overview on this part of the agenda, being just the special use permit?
Sure. Let me get to that page. Obviously, we're dealing with the same property here. The Dart Bank is looking to reconstruct the bank facilities on this property, eventually demolishing all of the structures on the building or on the site and reconstructing a single bank facility with a detached drive-through service canopy toward the northwest of the site, and essentially providing the same service that they provide today with some room for future growth. As you probably know, across the street here, it's very close to where we're at tonight. The owner, the applicant, and the professional team associated with them have done a good job of putting these plans together. Typically, we look for site plan reviews in a two-step process. They're requesting preliminary, final, and special use permit requests in the same night. From my professional perspective, they've done a good job of meeting nearly all of the standards for submission from that perspective, and we are authorized to do this concurrently as a single review for that purpose. So I just have a few items to highlight as we move forward with that. The land uses in the vicinity are quite a mix of stuff, as you would expect in downtown Central Business District. You have office, commercial, even light manufacturing to the north, and commercial to the east. You have post office, municipal services, city hall here, even the railroad, and a park to the west. So it's quite a mix of things, as you would hope to see in a central business district. Obviously, a office and a bank facility would enhance the overall character of the downtown. Plan details. The proposed development is shown crossing multiple parcels of land and two zoning districts. Currently, obviously, we have approved rezoning in that respect, but it still has to go through two iterations with the City Council, so it's not effective until after it's gone through that process. However, developments and structures are typically asked to be on contiguous property for setback reasons. However, in this particular circumstance, since if it moves, this rezoning does move through council, then it's not as critical. However, we do recommend the condition that all the land be subject to consolidating those, condition with the condition that they actually receive the rezoning request. Other plan details, building lights. The plan doesn't show building lights. It does show the parking lot lighting, but it doesn't show the building lighting. So approval is recommended with the condition that they provide the required lighting and the style of lighting consistent with Section 94-177E, which has specific requirements about downlighting, shielded lights, so that the neighboring residents and neighboring businesses don't see the source of the light. Also, there are a few light poles on the site plan that are shown to be above the required maximum height of 15 feet for accessory structures. So that's also approved as a condition of approval, or recommended as a condition of approval. With regard to sheet L100, this is landscaping. It's unclear if the proposed landscaping will cause a vision obstruction. Much of the landscaping is shown right on the corner of the driveway entrances, very close to the sidewalk. So it's recommended they provide in the landscaping materials. It's unclear what their mature height will be and how they will fill in. So it's not so much of a critical issue that we think that it's improperly designed. It's just that I don't think we have a good understanding of what that's going to be like when it's mature, so that we have our pedestrians and other motorists are as safe as possible. So approval is recommended with the condition that clear vision triangles are shown as required, and that maybe the mature planting height of landscaping is provided. With respect to off-street parking and circulation, the applicant's requesting that they receive a variance for the overall size of the parking space. They're required to have a 200 square foot parking space with a minimum width of 10 feet. They're asking for a reduction to 162 square feet with a width of 9 feet. So they have applied for a variance that is to be decided this Thursday at the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting here in this building at 5:30. So approval is recommended with the condition that they receive that variance. Applicants proposed a construction schedule essentially starting this month and being substantively complete in, I have here May for some reason. Why do I have May there? That doesn't seem right. But when is your completion date? So August of 2016 is their target for completion. With regard to streets and traffic, the site is adjacent to 3 streets, that being West Ash, which is State Highway M36, Park Street to the east, and Maple Street to the north. Let's see, water and sanitary sewer. The site is currently served by the appropriate water and sanitary sewer facilities. However, there is a public sanitary sewer that crosses the property at the west end of the site. In conducting the research to try to find the easement on that property, the applicant was unable to identify an easement there. So we're suggesting that approval be conditioned such that the easement be created, and the city is more than willing to facilitate that process of making that happen. We'll most likely have to draw those documents up and participate with that. City engineer has reviewed this, and his comments are relative to minor utility standards related to storm sewer, sanitary sewer, sidewalks, driveway entrances, wastewater discharge, and permit requirements. Approval is recommended with the condition that the applicant provide a revised site plan addressing the comments listed in the engineer's letter. None of the comments that he's provided really substantively affect the proposal from a design perspective, but more of just a utility standard perspective. Also, a stormwater drainage facilities maintenance agreement will be required. Again, the Ingham County Health Department's provided comment indicating that the solid waste generated from the demolition must be sent to an approved solid waste facility. And again, the Jackson and Lansing Railroad Company provided comment indicating that any stormwater runoff be controlled so as not to discharge onto the railroad right-of-way, as we discussed previously tonight. The Ingham County Drain Commissioner's Office has indicated that a soil erosion sedimentation control permit will be required. And with that, all of the additional agency comments are attached. No additional concerns or objections were noted. Okay. So in addition to the standards that I've covered so far, Section 94, 191F of the Mason Code requires that special use permits meet certain discretionary standards. There are 7 of them, and I'll go through those quickly. Number 1, be designed, constructed, and operated and maintained harmonious with the rest of the vicinity. From our analysis, it doesn't appear that there would be any adverse effect to the proposed use. Number 2, it doesn't appear that there would be any hazardous or disturbing uses generated from the site. Number 3, the site is served by the adequate and necessary utilities, and will not cause any adverse impact to our other services such as police, fire, and the like. Number 4, will not create an additional required public cost for public facilities and services. And number 5, will not involve uses, activities, processes, and materials that would be detrimental to any person, property, or general welfare. The only potential conflict would be that was mentioned from the landscaping perspective. So we do provide a condition of approval to address that. Number 6, not be located such that it will directly or indirectly have a substantial adverse impact on the natural resources of the city. And number 7, be in compliance with other applicable local, state, county, federal rules and regulations. And with number 7, when we send these plans out to all the agencies that might have an interest, such as the Drain Commissioner, the airport, the railroad, so they all get a chance to provide comments. So hopefully we've covered number 7 by providing this information to all the agencies that have an interest. So with that concludes kind of the overview from the city's perspective of how it meets the city standards. And with that, I'll take any questions or comments that you have, or go to them. Yep. Okay.
Again, for the
Or you can do it either way if you want to do the back and forth with the applicant to answer questions and deal with all that. Is probably appropriate. That you can either do that within the public hearing and at the front end, or separate and then open the public hearing.
All right.
Either way works.
They're the ones required for buildings over 15,000. Oh,
Sorry. It appears that there's a special permit.
Great, go ahead. Thank you.
The first point was that the parcels are
We typically look for clear vision triangles, so that that'll help us delineate if anything that's in those. Then we know that those are the ones we need to look at, and what are the height, what are the mature heights, and that kind of thing. Make sure that there isn't a conflict.
railroad is. So we don't expect any water to be entering the railroad right away at all. We intend it all to stay on our site. And we believe that we've graded it so that it does that. We do intend, the Ingham County Drain Commissioner, we do intend to submit for their review for soil erosion control and stormwater and site plan review, I believe is what was their comment. But in their letter, they did say that we are proposing elements that will help clean the stormwater quality and the stormwater quantity from the site, and they wanted to see that, and we are proposing that. And that was all I had. Do you have any other questions for me?
Hearing, and then we'll come back if there's any additional questions. That way we can address after the public hearing and go forward that way. Thank you very much. Okay, at this point in time, we are going to open up the public hearing. Again, the public hearing is about the special use permit, and same situation as before. Please come up and address us from the podium. State your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 3 minutes. So this time I'll open up the public hearing.
Norman Austin, 331 West Ash Street. I am concerned about the stormwater. I know that from time to time, the area on Ash Street on the east side of the railroad track, it dips down before it goes over the tracks, as well as Maple Street does the same thing. And in the past, we've seen that where the stormwater has come right up and pushed the manhole cover right off the manhole out there. And I couldn't understand where the stormwater was going from the parking lot. If it was going through this cleaning process and then going into a pipe that's dumping into the city's storm drain at that point, or where it's exactly going.
We can get that addressed. I think that.
I can address that
directly. And do we need to show like a map? Do you have one of your overlays that would show? I mean, Mr. Austin, have you seen the overlay of what they were talking about, how that's going to affect?
Let's try a verbal description first and see if that satisfies you, and if it doesn't, then we can move to the maps. Let's try a verbal description first and see if that helps you. I mean, I know you understand that area fairly well, but let's start with that, and there's a plan right over there that we can have you look at as well. I can come around and open it to that page while she's discussing, or Don can do it. Thank you. Thank you.
Currently, on the east side of the railroad, on the driveway that exits onto Ash Street, there's a catch basin existing there. The discharge from the rain garden is that location right now. We have also, currently the pipe that catch basin discharges into a catch basin that's in the road in Maple Street. Then that has a 12-inch pipe that discharges or goes across the street to another catch basin, and from there it changes to an 18-inch pipe, which goes to a flared end section that discharges into Sycamore Creek. As part of this project, we have actually upsized the pipe that crosses the road from a 12-inch to a 15-inch to address some of the capacity issues that might have been present before. We can't change the grading of the road itself. That's a city road. So if there's issues in the storm sewer that exist that are part of the city system, they'll probably still exist now, but we have attempted to mitigate any extra runoff that's coming from our site going across the road discharging into the city system by upsizing that pipe out of our rain garden system. I believe as part of the design, because we have the rain garden, the discharge will actually be less than it is currently, which could help the situation if it's coming out of the manhole structures in the road. Their overall runoff from this site will be less than what's there, so it won't add to the problem or accentuate that problem.
Great. Yes, Dave.
Just
please.
a reminder that the proposal for the grading system and the stormwater management came with a calculation submittal that showed how the volume of water is being treated by a design system for that volume of water. It did go through our city engineer review, and other than some minor adjustments to the utilities, that he had no objection to the overall plan, that it was calculated properly and should treat the water appropriately. So just want to remind people that it did go through the city engineer review.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Foster. Go ahead, Commissioner Fish. Let's finish with what's at gentleman, Mr. Austin. Do you feel that you've got the question answered? Right now, you're still part of the podium, so I just want to make sure that you're all set. Are you?
I guess I have to take their word for it. They increased the size of the one pipe, 15-inch.
Would you mind going back up to the microphone, because we do have the recording going,
Okay.
and you brought up
I can't hear you guys, so turnabout's fair play.
All right, so if you could just back up a little bit and restate what you did, we'll be good to go.
Okay. It's my understanding now from what he's telling me that nothing from this property is coming out on Ash Street. So there should be no change in the amount of water going down Ash Street from what it has in the past. But everything's going to be funneled through that rain garden and into that 15-inch pipe and then out into Maple Street. And they feel that that's adequate enough to go out there and across to the creek. I'm not an engineer. I don't deal with that, so I know, that size of that property and how much water we're going to get off from it and going through there. I'm just concerned that it doesn't flood the city system. Right now, it's probably close to a capacity.
All right. We appreciate you addressing us with that concern, and we do have folks that are looking into that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Foster.
I just like to reassure him that I've personally did the stormwater calculations, and we're actually decreasing the amount of runoff that's coming off of the site, even as it exists today, and we're vastly decreasing it from what was there when the Infographics warehouse was there, because we have substantially less impervious surfaces on the overall site than was there previously. So we're decreasing the amount of stormwater entering the rain garden. By having the rain garden, we're slowing it down and decreasing it more, because you'll get infiltration into the rain garden soils. And then we're upsizing just to make sure we're upsizing the pipe size, just to make sure that our water can efficiently go through that and has sufficient capacity to go into the system. After that, it's a city system.
Sir, in order to be able to take part, I've got to ask that you come up to the microphone and state your name and address, and we'll be happy to get the questions answered. Please. Thank you.
I'm Daryl Benedict. I'm the owner of Benedict Auto Body, 246 West Maple Street. And I understand on how some of the water is going to be running down the hill, and I just kind of wanted to know where the pipe was going to be coming out at on Maple Street, because in the past there has been a water problem coming down from all downtown, and there's only 2 catch basins there, and they don't catch it all. So now they're saying that there's a pipe coming out on Maple Street, and it's going to run over to the creek. And I'm just trying to understand what size of pipe, where's the pipe located, and how is the water going to transfer across Maple Street down to Sycamore Creek? Is that going to run down the hill across my parking lot and wash out the bank? I think that is, it's really my only concern on how the water, the landscaping is being there. Is there going to be big, tall trees to hide my building? Besides that, I don't have any problem. I just want to make sure that the water doesn't flood me out, because the water does in Sycamore Creek get pretty high. And we have, over the years, we have, with Park and Recreation, we have blocked that bank up so it doesn't deteriorate, and I'm just trying to make sure that it doesn't take my driveway along with it. So if I could be explained that would be good.
Yes, sir. In fact, the property representatives have gone over that, and it's kind of off the same thing that Mr. Ross was just talking, on the other side of the parking lot, and if necessary, we'll give her an opportunity to explain it verbally, and then they could show you on the map if need be.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will say the existing pipe has not, the location of the existing pipes have not changed at all. We're not creating another pipe that discharges and goes across Maple. It's the same location and the same connection between catch basin to catch basin that was there. We've just increased the amount, the size of the pipe that connects between catch basin to catch basin. And it's under the street, but it's in the same location, and it's connecting to the same catch basin. If there's issues from the street itself about flooding, it's not something this development can take care of. That's something that's a city issue. But we have accounted for the possibility of there being more water from our side by upsizing the existing size of the pipe that is there.
Okay. Excuse me, not to be persistent, but if you could make sure that you keep facing towards the microphone,
Sorry.
because every time you turn, it takes it away from what others can be able to hear with this being recorded. So I'm sorry, but carry on.
All right. So we're not changing the existing conditions that exist. We're just increasing the capacity of what's beneath Maple Street now. From the catch basin that's on the north side, that's adjacent to Mr. Benedict's property, from there to the creek, we're not changing anything. That's an existing city storm sewer, and that's going to remain the same. And I can certainly show them on the plan if you'd like to look at that.
Mr. Benedict, if you could come back up to the microphone, does that answer what you were looking for?
Well, not exactly, because in her comment a few minutes ago that she said they was putting in another pipe in to go for the water flow to go across Maple. And that's why I came to concerned on how the water was going to come across, where this pipe was coming. Now she's saying that the two catch basins that are already there, how's their water going to run into that catch basin from the standpoint of where they're at today?
They're actually increasing the line of what's already there. I think if she would pull that, go ahead and re-explain that again with that drawing, you'll probably be able to see that they're not changing things as far as a brand-new cutout going across your property or where the water's going. From what we've been told, it's a larger pipe. So I'll let her go ahead and explain it to you. But
Where's my building set?
the only thing I have to ask, though, is you do keep your voices loud, because we want to get your questions answered, but it is our meeting. We have to make sure we can hear everybody.
This is Maple.
This is Maple, correct.
Okay. And you're saying...
He had a question about where the drive is located versus where his building is located.
Because I understood that the drive was coming out right straight across from my building. Is that correct?
Is this your bituminous drive there? I think
This is his, this area right here is the bit that is, the asphalt that is on the east side of your building.
Okay.
I believe your building is sitting right here.
And where's your drive at?
Our drive is here.
Okay. And how's the level going to be from this drive? Because if you got water coming down this hill out of this drive here.
Okay, I can address that. The drive itself, we have a catch basin. It's designed so that none of the water that's on the site will leave the right-of-way. It'll come back internal to the site. So just on the south side of our driveway, we have a catch basin. We have one catch basin on the west side and another on the east side to catch all the water from our site before it leaves the driveway location.
Okay.
From the right-of-way out to the curb of the drive or of the road itself along Maple, that will still go out into the road, but it's only a small portion from the front edge of the sidewalk to the road curb.
Okay, I understand that. I'm just,
Everything else will come back in.
because I was just trying to make sure that this water coming down through here, but you got 2 catch basins there to catch it.
We'll catch it before it goes across the sidewalk.
Okay, because this is all low all the way down through there, and it would flood me and Service Master both out. That was all I had concern. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm Celeste Hude, 411 West Maple Street. My concern, my question I'm wondering about is the lights in the parking lot. You said there would not be lights on the building itself, but are these going to be, what will be the intensity of those lights? Will they be like giant floodlights, or how bright will they be? How visible will they be?
We have specific requirements for lights for a parking lot like that, and I'm going to ask Mr. Haywood to go ahead because he kind of explained part of that, and I'll let him elaborate a little bit more on how his office makes sure that when we're going through this, that those specifications are kept so that it's not going to be the morning sunshine, so to speak, at the middle of the night for you.
Yeah, what we require for developments like this, particularly redevelopment projects that put in a new parking lot and change the lighting size, a couple of things. First, we require that the parking lot light poles are not taller than 15 feet. And what that does is it reduces the source of light to a lower point so that they're not so tall that, no matter where you are, you see up into the light itself. And the other thing that we require, that those lights are shielded on all sides and that the light is pointed downward to prevent neighbors from being able to see right into the light source. And the other thing is that we require what's called a photometric plan. What that does is it's a plan that shows the location of the light and then the intensity of the light in contours from that point radiating out from the light source itself, and that's what the intensity of the light is at the ground or at a certain height from the ground. And so what we look for is at the perimeter of the site that the intensity or what's called foot candles, the level of brightness not be more than 1.5 at the perimeter of the site. So what that indicates to us is that significant light isn't spilling out into either the roadway that might interfere with motorists, and then also be bothersome to neighbors.
And how many of those will be on the site?
Oh, I can't remember exactly. Maybe Don or Tammy can answer that. I didn't count them myself. Roughly 11.
And can you give me an example of what the intensity will look like? I mean, I can't picture 1.5. I don't know what
Tammy has a copy of that right behind you.
Okay.
I'm showing her ES1, which is the photometric layout and site plan. This is the parking area on the west side of the building, and you said you were on Maple?
Well,
there's quite a large distance between where we've faced the parking lot, where those higher lights will be, versus where Maple Street is, which is out here. So we've concentrated the parking along Ash, which is adjacent and across from the fire station, where we are in close proximity to tonight. So I've highlighted the largest of the light poles. So there's 4. These are lower level lights. So they're not as tall as the main parking lot lights. So there's 4 main parking lot lights in that what will be the employee parking or the bigger of the parking areas, and then smaller, less tall lights as you go through the driveway up to Maple Street.
and then what about lights on the drive-through? Are there going to be constant lights on that also?
I believe there'll be canopy lights underneath. There's a canopy, and there'll be pot lights in the canopy to light that immediate area, but there's none planned. And then there's a small light here that will help you see where you're going inside the drive-through, but there won't be any facing out. Yeah. So they'll be under the canopy and directed directly down into the drive-through lanes.
And then, what would 1.5 look like? What is that like?
I'm not an electrical engineer.
Floodlight?
So
What is it like?
No, it's
If
not
you
a floodlight.
if you look outside our window here, you see a similar style of light that you would probably see in that parking lot. Theirs might be even slightly shorter than that, or roughly that height.
Okay. Right.
But they have a top cover over the top of it, so no light goes up into the night sky. It's all directed down towards the parking lot, and it is almost a cone of light that comes down and shines on the surface below, but not out.
Not out.
Right.
Sideways? It goes sideways, though?
It goes some, but they've run a calculation based on the location. That's what this photometric plan is. So they run a calculation that tells them at the property line, no light is getting on the other side of that property line.
Oh.
And the modeling within the computer software can tell them, and that's how they locate where the lights are to eliminate that spillover. And if you look really close, this is a half size, but they're all zeros along Maple Street.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that means there's no light at all spilling over onto Maple.
Thank you.
All set then? Thank you. Anyone else? All right, this time our public hearing is closed. Thank you very much for your concerns and things that you brought up. It made it very helpful for us on how those answers came through and being able to know what we're going to do for this project. So thank you much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Waxman.
I move that Planning Commission Resolution number 2015-02 be considered as read.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 2015-02 as read. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Do we have a resolution to introduce?
Yes, I do. Planning Commission Resolution Number 2015-02, a resolution approving a preliminary and final site plan and special use permit to construct a 29,040-square-foot bank facility, including drive-through, located at 368 South Park Street. Introduced by Sabaton, seconded by Hewd.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments or questions or concerns, either for Mr. Haywood or for the developers that are here with us this evening? Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll be the first to go. I just had a few questions. The first was regarding the parking variance. I know that's not before this body, but if I'm reading this correctly, and this is just for clarification, the parking variance is for the lot in the northeast corner of the property. Is that correct?
No, it's for both parking lots.
For both parking lots.
Yep.
And that you would normally be required to have 200 square feet in each parking lot.
We normally have to have 200 square feet in each parking space itself. So the parking space itself is 20 feet by 10 feet per ordinance, and we're requesting that all of our parking spaces on the site be 9 feet by 18 feet.
Okay. And that gives you a total of 162 square feet, I think?
That sounds correct.
Okay. Also, from a standpoint of the drive-through, which is the special use permit, I understand that there's a drive-through already on the property. My questions are more specifically about the traffic flow. I see that you will have access to the parking lot on both Maple and also on Ash Street. Where will traffic actually enter the drive-through canopy? Will it be from the north side of that canopy or the south side?
It will only be allowed to go from the south side.
So then presumably one could enter from either Maple or Ash, and then I see a turn in here. They would enter the canopy from the south side of the canopy and then exit back onto Maple. Is that correct? Or they could exit at either?
They would have to go through northbound through the drive-through and exit onto Maple.
Exit onto Maple.
They could turn, if they exit out of the drive-through, they could probably maneuver so that they were southbound in that drive lane that's on the west side of the drive-through. So they could go back, but the drive-through itself is one-way northbound towards Maple.
Okay. So then my secondary question, just as a follow-up, is that if for some reason there is a line at the drive-through, several customers trying to access that, is there potential for that line to spill out into Ash Street, or is there how many cars can you accommodate in that particular drive-through mechanism that you've designed?
I might introduce the architect who, I want to say there's 4 per lane has been allotted for the distance in the drive-through lanes themselves. And then that whole area will be one way. So from the canopy of the drive-through all the way to the small driveway that is just west of the bay of parking on the north side of that parking area, that will all be one way dedicated to the drive-through. So even if there's 4 in each of the drive-through lanes, they can still stack south down into that driveway throat before they ever back up. I don't believe there'll ever be an instance where they'll be backed up onto Ash Street.
And then the final question I had for traffic flow would be regarding the parking spaces that are in the northeast corner of the property. I know that intersection is already kind of interesting with the stop sign on Maple Street, and then of course the oncoming traffic from Park, and then westbound from Maple. Do you foresee any issues with coming out of the drive onto Maple there, since there will be more usage of that particular easement? I just wouldn't want there to be a backup there while you're also at the stop sign waiting for that oncoming traffic from Park and Maple.
We have, to the best of our ability, tried to move that driveway as far west along Maple as we could and still keep it accessible to the finished floor elevation of the building itself. So we did try to slide it as far west as we could to help alleviate that congestion at that intersection. We were constrained by the grades. Maple itself is a very steep graded road, so we were constrained. The farther we slid it to the west, the lower we were in relation to the finished floor elevation of our first floor, which is where that parking lot is situated closest to. So we were cognizant. We tried to do our best to slide that as far as we could so that there would be some distance between that multi-lane intersection and that drive-through location.
I do want to say thank you not only to the answers that you provided to my questions, but also the answers that you provided to the residents who are here tonight, and I appreciate the thoroughness with which you've submitted your proposal to us. It's very good to see that you've thought through a lot of these different things, and quite frankly, I appreciate it. I'm sure my colleagues here and also on the council will appreciate the detail with you've provided us this evening.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Commissioner Hugh.
Thank you. I just, again, want to echo Commissioner Brown's, or Mayor Pro Tem Brown's sentiments about the care that you've given to this plan and the proposal, and I truly appreciate it. I think, DART is a community member, and I would expect nothing less, but I'm grateful. And, just talking about the lights and the way you cited the drive-through, I think was just wonderful, the consideration of the residential area. Along the lines of the parking, that corner, was there any thought to making it a one-way, perhaps, one-way coming entering from Maple Street and exiting on Park, or is that to be a two-way?
It's proposed to be a two-way.
A two-way, okay. And then with regard to the parking, one concern I always think about is, we write these specs for parking, and this is, and help me out, David, if I'm not using the right terminology here, but that is the minimum standard for number of spaces as well. And my question is, do you really need all those spaces? And if a reduction of those spaces would help, or is the requirement dictating the number, or is that a need that's been calculated?
I imagine it's a need that's been calculated,
okay.
but it happens that it also meets our standard for office space and for that type of use.
Okay, good.
Can I follow up on your
Sure.
question? I just have I'm sorry. I have a follow-up on her question. On Thursday, there is a zoning board of appeals to get the variance for the parking space requirements. If, I can't imagine why, the variance is denied, what will happen to your parking? Obviously, everything has to get bigger, but does the property still have, do you still have enough room on the property to accept the larger square footage that you'll need?
We're operating under the assumption it's going to pass. If it doesn't pass, it is going to be something that is going to be a hurdle that we really have to get over.
I hope you don't have to go.
We have a little bit of background to it. The customer parking, the public parking, which is that parking lot to the northeast, with it being on the radius that we have there, our parking space dimension of 9 foot by 18 foot is actually at the narrowest part of each one of those parking spaces. Because those parking spaces are a pie shape, because they're on that arc, we're really, by the time you figure up the actual square footage, we're going to be much closer to the 200 than we are to the 176 or whatever it becomes. But it would be a significant redesign if we had to go to the actual size, the 10 by 20 size. A little bit of background for you. In our conversations with the Zoning Board of Appeals last week, we felt that they were comfortable when we tabled it, that they would pass it. They had a question for the city attorney. The city attorney has responded to that in a positive manner for our end of it. We're expecting it's not going to be a major issue to them to pass it on Thursday.
Okay.
And I will add that while we're asking for a reduction in the parking zone or the parking space dimension, we're maintaining the required dimensions for all the drive lane aisles. So we still have the ordinance requirement. We've met that for all of our driveways and all of the aisles in between parking spaces too. So we feel pretty confident that the variance will pass.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Hugh, got another question? Go ahead.
Thank you. And then just one quick thing. The handicap spaces, those are not necessarily going to be reduced, right? Those will be built.
For ADA requirements, you can have a minimum of 8 foot wide space, and it's still considered accessible as long as the aisle next to it meets the requirements. So the minimum width for an aisle is 5. If it's just a regular handicap, if it's van accessible, it needs to be an 8 foot aisle adjacent to the space. So we're still well within ADA requirements to have the 9 foot wide space.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
And I just have one more. And just one more, again, along with the lights. And I did a back of the napkin calculation. I'm quite sure that you're fine, and you're going to answer this. With regard to the sight lines, one of the things about the residential neighborhood is looking up and seeing the courthouse at night. And I believe that it's clear there's not going to be an issue. Looking at the buildings now and the way it all falls and the elevations and everything. But I just wondered if that was something that was considered and
the elevations that are shown on the print from Park Street, it'll appear to be a one-story building, similar to what's there now.
Okay.
Because the site is uniquely situated that it drops off considerably as it goes towards Sycamore Creek, we were able to give a larger look to the elevation on the west side of the building.
Okay.
So from Park Street, it won't vastly be that much taller than it currently is.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, David.
I also want to clarify that we currently do not have a standard that's relative to the proximity to the courthouse. So although that might be a consideration from a neighborhood perspective, we don't have an actual requirement where we could require any kind of consideration to that regard. So
I appreciate that. I'm not asking for a requirement, but I was just curious. So thank you.
Commissioners, anyone else with any questions or comments? Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. All right, before you is Resolution 2015-02, a resolution approving a preliminary and final site plan and special use permit to construct a 29,040 square foot bank facility, including drive-through, located at 368 South Park Street. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion carries. Before we go on, I'd just like, again, thank you very much for how patient you've been with us this evening and how detailed you were for answering your questions, and again, as well as how detailed the prints were. Just so that everybody knows, part of what we do is we don't normally just do a preliminary and final all at once. You've got to make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's, and I commend you for doing that and giving us as much detail as you have. And I thank you folks from the public coming in and giving us your questions and concerns, and I hope everybody's leaving this evening happy. So thank you much for your time. Commissioners, regular business number 7, report on medical marijuana ordinance subcommittee activity. What's been going on, folks? David, are you the spokesperson, or do we have a commissioner that's going to speak up?
I guess
Nobody
it's
seems to be racing
it's
here to the
me.
microphone.
I'm glad to fill you in. It's a brief report. We did meet to discuss this issue and further. So I think where we're headed is to kind of try to take this one step at a time. We are going to be doing some research on ordinance examples from other communities similar to Mason. Kind of basically see what our neighbors are doing. The city administrator, Mr. Colburn, is working with the townships, trying to hit that concern from the city council, trying to line up our possible joint discussion on the issue, try to get their opinions and attitudes about where they're headed with the issue, go from there. We're also preparing basically a statement paper that says kind of where we've been and where we're at kind of thing, so that when we take this issue out to the public for public input, we can kind of give them a very quick rundown about kind of bring them up to speed on where we are in terms of legislation, where we are in terms of case law, what under the current case law and legislation, what can be permitted and what's not permitted. So it gives them a framework to operate through. So when they provide their public input, we don't get an overwhelming support for something that's illegal or overwhelming support for something that we can't require, that kind of thing. So we want to kind of narrow the focus a little bit from that perspective. And so one of our next steps is to actually take it out for public input, try to get some public engagement before we have a draft, so that we're not drafting something that's completely outside of the scope of what the community would like to see, or the council or interested parties. So that's kind of where we're headed, and that's kind of an overview. Unless the committee had anything else to add, that's our 2 cents.
Thank you, David. All right, item number 8, unfinished business. Commissioners, any unfinished business? New business, number 9. Commissioners, new business. Commissioner Hughes.
Just a thought. I think that we're very fortunate to have DART here and go to the effort that they did with the property and developing it. I know that there's a placemaking workshop tomorrow, and just wondered, just thought I'd put it out there what the sense was, David, of looking at some sort of form-based code for the downtown area, or design guidelines. Again, we could have AutoZone come and say they want to take over Quality Dairy's spot, and while we welcome the business, part of what's so unique about Mason is that our economy is inextricably linked with our character, and that the downtown and the way it looks. And I just would hate to see that one lot, convert into something that we might not be as fond of. And wondered if that was something we want to consider it. And I'm happy to after May 18th. I'm happy to take that on.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. Our master plan actually has a suggestion that we consider that as something to explore. It's a matter of, prioritizing the master plan. Right now we've got 2 projects going, one being the sub-area plan committee and the medical marijuana committee. So that's something we can certainly put on the horizon for exploring. But and it was also, I think there was a study done I'm going to get the year wrong, 2008 or 9-ish downtown marketing study. Was that? Do you remember the year on that? Around then? Yeah,
No, that was
09.
going to be about 09, yeah.
In that, they recommended that we adopt a form-based code for the downtown. So certainly something that now is in two of our master plan, and then also the downtown marketing study that was done at that time. So it's come up a couple times, and certainly worth discussing. Form-based code is a general term for focusing on the performance of a building more than just the land use. Right now we have standards for land uses that are relative to site development standards, but nothing that addresses the building form or the performance of the building. And that might be, for example, many of our downtown square, we have buildings that are built to the property line, to the right-of-way line. They have fenestration, lots of windows. They have cornices on the building, some decorative detail, maybe recessed entries, and that kind of thing. So a form-based code may simply require some of those things. They may simply require that you must build to the right-of-way line or the property line. You must have 2 floors. Just some very basic things like that. Or it can get as crazy as having an architectural review board and a myriad of architectural detail requirements to, you could throw the book at them, or you could make it simple and just have a few functional things to require. So that's, in a nutshell, what form-based code does. And that can overlay the current zoning that has limited land uses and that kind of thing as the traditional zoning. You could just have that kind of overlay on top of that as well. So that's kind of what that entails. And I do think about that, and as I think about the city, and if something were to go away or be destroyed by fire, or what standards do we have in place that would protect the integrity of the form and character of our downtown? And that's one way of addressing those issues. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, great, David. If you could keep that with your note, and Commissioner Hute is going to be bringing that up periodically as old business then, and she's in line to take over. And I guess it puts a little pressure on you on the other 2 subcommittees to get your act done. And Commissioner Hute's ready to go forward, so come on, let's get done. Go ahead.
I should also add that I am going through the form-based code certification, so I will have that certificate this summer. So I need a project to
You're
practice.
going to know what you're talking about then.
So I need an internship.
Great. David's always looking for somebody that can help him out with those types of things. So
Public record now.
there you go. All right, thank you. Any other new business? Correspondence. All right, we do have Vevay Township Planning Commission notice of intent to prepare a master plan. March 18th, 2015 is obviously when they're having their meeting, or excuse me, where they had their meeting, and the Planning and Zoning News, February 2015. So as far as the rest of that on what they're doing with their master plan, I'm going to probably rely on David or Marty to talk about that when you give your reports. So at this point, item number 11, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, you got a liaison report for us on what the City Council's doing. You got about 13 seconds. 5, 4, 3.
We voted on stuff. No, just a few things. The council's been very busy over the past month. A few things of note. We've received reports from all of our directors, our police, fire, and zoning and development. Those are available online. Each of them are very interesting. You can find out what's been going on within those different departments throughout the year. The council also approved a measure to reissue the bonds on City Hall. I believe Mr. Colburn has mentioned this at a previous meeting, but essentially our financial planner has advised us that by reissuing the bonds and going with a different bond at the current interest rates, we can actually save the city over $100,000 in the long term and that's based on the federal government not paying the amount of interest on the current bonds as we had anticipated when the bonds were originally issued. So the city is proceeding with that process that will hopefully yield some significant cost savings. Also, the city has initiated a process with the county to purchase Rayner Park. Currently, under the lease agreement with the county, we're paying $1 a year to lease the park, and at the end of that lease agreement, we have the option to buy it. And so the council voted unanimously to begin the process of going through different measurements and assessments of the current property so that we can actually purchase the park, which will only cost the city $1. And then ultimately, by purchasing it before the lease is issued, we might save the city $1 too. So looking for every bit that we can save. We've renewed our fire services contracts with both Vevey and Aurelius Township, and we have also approved street closures for the annual Camino of St. James 5K festival, which will be held on August 9th. And finally, the council is currently in budget hearings and budget work sessions for the fiscal year 2016. We held our first budget session on last Wednesday, which was April 8th. And we have scheduled a second budget work session for next Tuesday, April 21st. You can actually watch last week's budget session on the city website, and it's also available on my website from YouTube, and so you can watch those at your leisure. It's a riveting discussion. And finally, our goal is to have the public hearing for the budget on May 6th. This is actually a Wednesday night, and it's different from our normal meeting schedule due to the May 5th election on the road funding proposal. The city clerk and election staff will be preparing the chambers for voting that Monday, so we've canceled our Monday night meeting and rescheduled it to May 6th. So our goal is to have the public hearing on the budget on May 6th and then follow that up with final action on the budget by May 18th. And those are just tentative dates right now. We have to have the budget done by May 18th, but our goal is to at least have the public hearing and the final action on separate dates. Outside of that, we have our next meeting on Monday, so stay tuned. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address those at this time.
Nobody stepping up. I think you did a good job with your announcements. Thank you. David, our director's report, sir.
Yes, sir. I just want to inform you of a couple things happening. The Hay Hill Riverwalk Trail pedestrian bridge is a go. The state has approved our specifications. Specifications have gone out to bid and are due May 5th, so we should hear back shortly. Bidders and the projected cost for that project and see where it comes in and see where we're headed at that point. So stay tuned. Tomorrow we're holding a placemaking workshop here, sponsored by the MSU MSU group and the Michigan Municipal League. The Land Policy Institute. Excuse me. And the MSU folks associated with them. So that workshop is between in the early afternoon and then evening. It's two sessions. The first session is kind of bringing you up to speed, some training about placemaking, and the second half of it is actual workshop to develop a draft policy for the city of Mason. So anybody's invited to attend. You do have to register, and hopefully there are still seats available if you are planning to go. Included in your packet's a flyer on how to get registered for that, so I encourage anyone to attend.
Great. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Anybody? Nope, you're off the hook, David. Mr. Colburn, what's the things going on as far as the administrator's office?
Mr. Chairman, as Mayor Pro Tem had referenced, we've been working diligently on the budget, and that's a team project, per se, of working with the department heads first and then bringing it to the city council. And so we're honing that down and moving forward. What we're experiencing is what I would call slow growth, very slow growth, about 2%. We're still experiencing a lot of losses, and there was quite an article in today's paper in regard to the tax tribunals and what's been happening in the state of Michigan the last 4 or 5 years, and it is influencing and impacting all levels of government in regard to the available revenues. I was reviewing the council members of my own taxes to give you an idea from several years ago till now. 7 out of the 8 are less, and you'll probably find the majority of yours are too, in regard to the devaluation of properties, not just because of the recession, but because of the philosophy that's been basically influenced into the state tax tribunal in this state and across the nation. And so people are paying less taxes through their property taxes because of that. But where it really influences us is in terms of the industrial and commercial properties. And you'll find that they're doing what they call the dark building syndrome, and that is that it's valued at, if we weren't here, what would the value of this property be if I had to sell it? So you've got industries that are going full bore and doing quite well. Matter of fact, as you know, the auto industry is doing quite exceptional right now. But if they were to sell that property, it would be considered obsolete, and that's what they're valuing it at, not in terms of the value of today's value to them of the business and industry that they're in. And so it's a conundrum for local governments. We're not able to grow our budgets that have lost through inflation and actual losses of the devaluation of properties. And so what I'm seeing in terms of the loss of state shared revenues from 13 years ago when we were at our maximum of constitutional and statutory, as an example, the city of Mason was at $825,000 revenue. We're just breaching $700,000 this year after 13 years. It gives you an idea of the uphill crawl that we're trying to make of paying the bills. That being said, Mason has postured itself in a good position, and I'm confident that we'll do well for the next several years, only because we've postured ourselves that way. That being said, that's not the case for all the communities in the state of Michigan, and it's going to be an interesting watch to see how statutorily, basically, and philosophically, the policy that's made and how that impacts the local governments and how we do business in the future of providing services. That being said, housing has been a big thing on our table the last few weeks, working on another grant that'll be coming to the City Council Monday. There'll be a public hearing in regard to 368 South Jefferson. That is the property known as the Vault Deli. There is a grant application going into the state in regard to putting 4 lofts, 2 on the second floor and 2 on the third floor. Each floor would have one bedroom, 1 bath apartment, and 1 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment for a total of 4 lofts. So that will be coming to the City Council as soon as next week, as well as a public hearing. Streets, going to be a very active street program this year. We have streets starting this week on Lansing Street between Maple and Ash, on Washington Street between Maple and Ash within the month, but after the 5K race along Maple Street, we'll be redoing Maple from Temple all the way to Rogers, so it's a very long length. We have South Cedar Street from Oak Street all the way down to Willow Creek. Not quite to South Cedar, or not quite to Kip, but the majority of that route. Then we have a safety grant that's coming in and being implemented at the intersections of Kip and Jefferson and Kip and South Cedar, and that'll be new box light traffic lights going in and some sidewalk from South Cedar over to US 127 on the north side of the street. Then, working with the county, we helped acquire an MDOT economic development grant when Gestamp did their enhancement. It was put off a year by Ingham County due to their needs. Unfortunately, that doesn't meet necessarily our needs because of the timing with South Cedar Street project. But from US 127 all the way to Dexter, Kip Road will be worked on also. So it's going to be a very active, a lot of orange barrel type summer for the city of Mason. That's a good thing in the sense that it's repairing a lot of streets and a lot of needs, particularly I know in KIP, that's owned by Ingham County Road Commission, but we did help them with that grant, and that'll go a long way to get rid of some of those ruts that you see in the deterioration along KIP Road. So it's going to be busy with streets, but a good thing. In regard to art and public art, the city's been working, as you know, the last few years on a couple of projects. We acquired a $10,000 grant through LEAP, and through that process, the council had encouraged, but instead of having a government commission, it went to the private side, working through the Mason Historical Society, so it is a legal nonprofit, and they will be having an opportunity for the students through the grade school and high school, as well as the teachers themselves, to sell their product through an art auction May 9th. That's Saturday, the day before Mother's Day. That's going to be at Extra Bestsellers. And so if you get an opportunity to support that, their intent is to purchase a piece of public art, hopefully to go into a piece of property near the Hay-Ho Riverwalk, so that everybody can enjoy that. And that being said, they're also sponsoring a project that the Mayor Pro Tem Brown has put together for May 2nd, and this is pretty significant. This is going to be Saturday, May 2nd, down at Rayner Park. This is the same weekend as Spring Fling, and there's going to be 3 orchestras. And at this point, I'm going to finish up my report, but respectfully request Mayor Pro Tem Brown finish this up in regard to what we can expect down at the Rotary Stage in Rayner Park on May 2nd.
Thank you to the city administrator and also to the chair for the opportunity to have the floor again. But yes, as part of Spring Fling, I wanted to see if we could get a Saturday music festival going on. And now that the Rotary Club has helped with the building of the stage there, we have a wonderful performance venue at Rayner Park. And so on Saturday, May 2nd, from 4 p.m. until 8 p.m., we are going to have an evening of jazz featuring 3 local jazz orchestras or jazz bands. The first will be the Lansing Community College Jazz Band, which is a group that I perform with. We will also have performances by the Mason High School Jazz Band, and finally the Twilight Memories Big Band, which will perform some pieces in concert with the Mason High School Jazz Band. So we're encouraging people, if you're already downtown during Spring Fling and at the courthouse show, just go on over to Rayner Park and you know, bring your own chair, bring a picnic blanket, bring some dinner. If not, you can go across the street, Dairy Hill, and get some nourishment as well, and come back over to the park and enjoy an evening of jazz. So we're hoping that it will become an annual thing, and we've got some great performers lined up and a great way to cap off what will be an exciting day of the Spring Fling Festival. So thank you for the opportunity to promote that, and we're truly grateful to the Arts and Mason group for sponsoring the concert for us this year. So with that, thank you.
Terrific. Yes.
If I may, it's another spin-off also, but we do like to support our local activities. And it's kind of tied to art, but it's also a fundraiser for the fire department because they have some a fundraiser the 20th at A&W, and they have jewelry, a handmade knife, a nice blanket, you know, and things of that nature that's tied not only to a fundraiser, but I think it's linked to art too. At least I'll stretch it that direction just to get away with it.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Savinen.
And if I am understanding Mayor Pro Tem Brown, then essentially is what he's saying is on the day of Spring Fling, just spend the entire day in Mason. Because, as I did forget to mention earlier, Mason Fire Department and the association is hosting a breakfast, a pancake breakfast, our annual pancake breakfast at the fire station in the morning. Walk down, see the car show. It's car show, and then spend the day in town, and then go down and see the jazz festival. Spend the entire day in Mason.
Can't beat it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have a comment for Mr. Colburn? Another thing I'd like to just add is that we do have item number 5 on our agenda for announcements. Commissioners, it's been a great evening. Thank you very much for your dedication, your due diligence, and it was rather lengthy with that resolutions that we went through, but thank you very much, and we are adjourned.
We don't want to belabor that public hearing, you know. Show and tell.